long weekend in between. But what we worked on the last couple classes was graphing equations and graphing inequalities. Okay, what's the difference between an equation and an inequality? If it's in an equation, it's going to say what?
It has an
Equal sign, mx plus b. And equations are only going to make what kind of lines? Well, no, equations are just going to be solid lines. Okay, and that's it. All right, increasing, decreasing, whatever. Inequalities are going to have what symbol? I usually put a box, but what could be in those boxes? Less than, greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. One of those symbols in there. Now, these lines, they're still going to have those same points. They're going to have the y-intercept, and they're going to have the slope, because all of that is the same. But these lines can either be dashed. When are they dashed? If it's not equal to, they could be solid, but what else do these have to have? What do inequalities have to have? Nope. Shade. They have to have shade. Either shade below the line or shade above the line. So those are kind of the fundamental difference between an equation and an inequality. Okay? It either has the shade or it's just like solid line, that's it. All right? So when you look at those, like, you got to consider all those things. So this one right here, which ordered pair is in the solution? Equation or inequality? Inequality. Okay, what do we know about our line? What kind of line is it going to be based on that symbol? Why is it solid? Because it has the or equal to. Where's the shade going to be, above or below? Why is it below? Because it's less than. It's less than. Do y'all remember this thing? This little chart? This chart. It's going to be great. You're not going to get this on your test. You're going to have to know it. Okay? You've got to be able to know it from there. Okay? All right. This is in slope-intercept form. So what is my M and what is my B? Okay. B is -6. So I'm going to put a point right there. What's my M? My slope? 3/5. So that tells me how I move. So from the y-intercept, I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3 over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3 over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I'm going to follow what my sign said, which I know I didn't have y'all get rulers. My bad. I forgot there was one graph. It's fine. And we're going to draw a solid line, and then we're going to shade below. Okay? So where are the solution sets in here? Where are solutions? Shaded area. And where else? Why on the line? Because it's solid. If that line was dashed, would they be solutions? No. Okay, good. We do remember some stuff from last week. So which one of these points is in the solution set? A. 5, -4 is right here. -2, -5, that's a no. 9, 1, that's a no. -8, 3, that's a no. Okay? Any other way you could do this problem without actually graphing it? What if they didn't put a graph on there? What if they just gave you this? I gave you a Delta Math like that, and y'all did it, and we talked about it last class. What can you do? Anytime they give you a point, I'm going to flip back. Anytime they give you a point, what are they giving you? No. Anytime they give you an ordered pair, they're giving you a X and a Y. And then if you have an inequality, they have an X and a Y in there, don't they? So if you go back, we'll just test this first one. We do know it's the right answer, but just so you can see, if I want to check the point 5, -4, that's a point. That's an X, that's a Y. They gave me the inequality, Y less than or equal to 3/5 X -6. What can I do with that? If I didn't have a graph, or I just wanted to work faster or something, I don't know. You're going to have to do a problem like this on your test, so we should practice it. What do I do with that 5? I replace it with the, what do I do with that -4? And if it is a solution, do I get a true or a false?
True.
I should get a true if it is a solution. So plug that in and make sure this is true. We know this is the answer. but plug it in, do some calculations, and make sure that you get a true answer. So that would give us -4, 3 over 5 times 5 minus 6. What are you actually going to type in your calculator? Because we had some questions about this yesterday on B-Day. We had something set up like that, and they said, what do I put in my calculator? Well, I don't know. What do you put in your calculator? You don't need to put y equals. You don't need to put the equation. Do you see a button anywhere that says you can put this symbol right there on your calculator? No. There's not one, okay? Do you need to do anything with -4? Is there any math that needs to be done with -4? No. So I'm just going to leave that as is. So what am I going to put in my calculator? Is there math that needs to be done here? That's what you throw in. So if you guys are just staring into space, pick up your calculator and evaluate this right-hand side. You want to get it to where it's like one number, symbol, one number. That's how you can read it and tell if it's true or false. So I already had one number over here. I got to turn this into one number over there. That's the goal. One number, symbol, one number. I got that. And then I'm just checking to see if it's true or false. The negative sometimes can be kind of tricky. It's -4 less than or equal to -3. Is that true or false? True. That's true. Think about money. Okay? Would you rather owe someone $4 or would you rather owe someone $3? I'd rather owe them $3 because that is -4 is less than -3. So that is true. That guy is a solution. Okay? I don't know. It depends on what they give you on the STAR test. But if they don't give you that graph, like honestly, plugging in algebraically is kind of going to be what you would probably want to do. Unless you made your own graph. I think there is like graph paper in there. But 2 ways you can think about it. But either way, the answer is A. 17. I like question 17. You want to know why I like question 17? Because I can get this answer without really doing a whole lot of work. Okay? And that's what happens a lot of times with inequalities. And that's pretty nice, okay? All right, here's the thing that's really key here that we're going to talk about today that we haven't really talked about yet. But when we get our equations or our inequalities, is this an equation or an inequality? It's an inequality. Do you see why all these guys have shade? Yes, yes. Okay, so we have to be in this slope-intercept form before we can ever play the dashed or solid above or below game. Okay, so are we in slope-intercept form right here? How do you know if you're in slope-intercept form? What has to be by itself? The y. So are we in slope-intercept form on number 17? Yes, we've been there so far. Today that's going to change. Okay, and that's why we got a whole lesson about that. So when you're in that form, it does make life way easier. So here's how I can work smart here because this is multiple choice. What kind of line based on this symbol? What kind of line am I going to have? Dashed or solid? Dashed. How do I know that it's dashed? There's no line under it. So what can I immediately do? Bye-bye. Bye-bye. 50-50. Now, I'm able to get the right answer based on the shade. What symbol is this? So where's the shade? Where's the shade on C? Below. Where's the shade on D? So what's the right answer? No math. No math. So sometimes, and y'all, these are star. These are star. We take them from the STAR test, release STAR tests. Okay? So sometimes they are that easy. Sometimes they're not, but you can usually get 50-50 based on line type and shade type. So very, very good skills here. Okay? All right, go ahead and flip over. Let me see. I think our internet is still working. So I'll show you your calendar real quick. To kind of see what we are up to today. Assuming the internet stays working, we've got Delta math practice after the lesson. But today we are getting into converting, okay? Converting into slope-intercept form. So we are taking a break from graphing today. We'll be back to graphing next class because that is kind of the main idea in this big unit is graphing. But today's focus is, what if we're not in slope-intercept form from the start? What do we do? And we're going to learn how to turn our equations in whatever form they're in into slope-intercept form. So I'm going to be introducing to you 2 forms today, okay? We're going to keep talking about these 2 forms for several weeks. So familiarize yourself with how they look, the differences between...
Hello, teachers. Please pardon this announcement.
All right, so we're going to talk about those forms, how to convert them, and then next class it's going to be like convert and graph. Again, just kind of put everything together. So this is really the last like new thing in this unit, but we got to get really good at it because we're not always nice to you and where we give you stuff in slope-intercept form to begin with. It's great when we are, but we're not always that way. Okay, technically this is also called literal equation. So that's a teak that we have to talk about, but really I kind of just say converting because it's faster. But what a literal equation is there's more than one variable. So if you look at all of your equations just on this page, whatever page number it is, you're going to have a y and you're going to have an x. You got two variables. That's what classifies it as literal. You can have like crazy formulas and stuff, and we might see some of those before the star, but we're going to kind of just focus on what's the most important, and that's getting to slope-intercept form. So here's our a form we already know. We already know slope-intercept form. What are the two things that slope-intercept form tells us? It's in the name. The slope and the y-intercept. Okay, so that's what we can see there. And y'all have already answered. The characteristic to know that it's in slope-intercept form is that it has to have y all by itself. Usually we put y equals in the front, but that's the giveaway. I want you to circle that. I want you to circle y equals. That is how you tell. Y'all have to know the differences between the forms. So write down what I'm writing. Miles, you're not on the right page. Okay? Write down what I'm writing. Slope-intercept form, you know you're in there when you're in y equals. Why do we like to be in y equals? Because there's a button that says y equals. Okay? And then the two things we know the slope, we know the y-intercept. And that's what we need to graph. So this is always where we want to end up. This is not always where we start. First of two new forms we're going to talk about today. Point slope form. Okay? Right there. I want you to locate this on your formula chart as well. Again, we're in linear equations. Do you see slope-intercept form and point slope form on your chart? Do y'all see it? You're going to want to know where this is because point slope form is not going away. After this unit, we got a whole unit about it. So it's mega important. Okay? All right, let's talk about what's different with point slope form. Is y by itself in point slope form? All alone. Is y all alone? No. There's another thing behind it. Okay? y1. That will be a number. I'm going to put number right there. That will be an actual number. Y minus 7. Y plus 5. Y whatever. Okay? And then we have m parentheses x minus x1. x1 will also be a number. And then m, what is m? Always your slope. So again, that will be a number. Now, we're not going to harp on what all those numbers are specifically right now. That's the next unit. But I want you just to be able to recognize, hey, this is in point slope form. Okay, you've got parentheses on the right side. You've got y plus or minus a number over there. That is different. All right, so on this front page, I always want us to start with each one of our forms. And I want you to be able to tell me what it is. On the front page, they're all going to start in point slope form, okay? But then when we start mixing them, I really want you to be able to know. And so there's two steps to go from point slope to slope intercept. First step is to use your distributive property, okay? We know that. It's been a minute. And then solve for y using inverse operations. So those are our two steps to get y by itself, okay? We're going to jump in. Here we go. Examples. Example number 1, convert to slope intercept form. So our end goal is going to be to get to y equals. That's the end goal. We did not start in y equals, okay? This slope, I'm going to put PS. That is point slope form. I can recognize it because it's y minus a number. There's some parentheses on this side, but this is my point slope form, okay? Do y'all see how this is not slope intercept form right now? All right, we're going to do some magic and turn it into slope intercept form. Step number 1, use distributive property. What side do we need to use the distributive property? What side of the equals? The right side. So I'm going to put that in parentheses. Right side. So we're going to take that number, which is your m, okay, for future reference. That's right outside the parentheses. And when we distribute, what operation are we doing? When you do your little rainbow thing, when you distribute, you're multiplying. Now, on the left-hand side, I'm just going to drop it down. I'm going to keep this y minus 4 for a minute. I'll deal with that later. That's step 2. Are you with me? 3 times x. 3 times x. 3x. 3 times what kind of 2 can I think that is? Negative. What's 3 times negative 2? Negative 6. So that was step number 1, which was to distribute. We can do that. We've done that. Are we good? We okay with step 1? Not bad. Step 2 is to solve for y using inverse operations. So in point-slope form, there is always going to be a number being added or subtracted to y. So that means we're going to have to move that number to the other side by doing the opposite. Okay, so you're either going to be adding something or subtracting something. So let's look at what we got. Y minus 4. How do I move a minus 4 to get this guy by itself?
Plus 4.
Add 4. So I'm going to put a plus 4, and what I do to one side, I have to do to the other side. Can I add a 4 to a 3x? Are those like terms? No, because what does 3 have with it? An x. 4 does not. So what am I really going to be adding 4 to? What kind of 6? So I always write that number underneath that plain number as well, that constant, because again, I can't do anything with the 3x. So here's what's going to happen here. This is going to go bye-bye, okay? And then on the left-hand side, I'm going to have what I want. I'm going to have y all by itself. Y equals 3x is just going to drop down because I can't do anything with that. And then I need to do this math. What is negative 6 plus 4? Negative 2. What form am I in now? Slope-intercept form, SI form. Okay? How do I know I'm in slope-intercept form? What's the giveaway? Y equals. Okay, for fun, what's your M? 3. What's your B? Negative 2. And then you could graph it. That's what we're going to do next class. Taking a break from graphing today. Okay, so that is the process. It is 2 steps. It is 2 steps that we've done before. You just got to remember what order to do them and how to do them. All right, let's try this. Let's try this bottom one, because I think it's got a negative, it's got a fraction, and I'm going to let you guys try these 2. How about that? Yeah. Sound good? Okay, so this 4th problem right here. We started putting problem numbers on the next note packet because this annoys me. Okay, but this problem, y minus 3 equals negative 3/4 times x plus 6. What form are we starting in? Point slope. We can abbreviate. Okay, this is our point slope form. It kind of looks like point slope form on here. You got parentheses going on, that type of thing. So we got 2 steps. Oh, I meant to put step 2. Isolate y. Okay, so step number 1. I'm going to draw my line. Step number 1, to convert, we always have to start with our distributive property. I'm just going to drop down y minus 3. Leave that as is. Okay, not going to freak out when I see a fraction. Fractions are our friends. Been saying that in Algebra 2 a lot lately. Okay, negative 3/4 times x. What is that? Negative 3/4 x. You just put it next to each other. Okay, all right, 6 times negative 3/4. All right, might get kind of yucky here. That's okay. We got a calculator. How do you get negative 3/4 in your calculator? Alpha y equals negative 3/4. What are we multiplying that by? Positive 6. And what do we get? So that was step 1, which was to distribute. Okay? It's going to happen. I mean, honestly, I've been flipping through a lot of old STAR test questions, and there are a lot of questions that have, like, fractions in them. And that's okay. They don't look beautiful. They wouldn't be that fun to graph. But we've got a calculator to take care of all that. Are we done? Are we in slope-intercept form? No. How do you know that we are not? There's still a minus 3. So that's step 2. How do we take away a minus 3 from both sides? Plus 3. So I'm going to do plus 3 right here. I'm not going to add it to the x. I'm going to add it to this guy. Plus 3 right here. And then this is going to get y by itself. That's the end goal. Negative 3/4 x. I can't do anything with that. So I'm going to go to my calculator. I can copy and paste that negative 9/2 because you're going to have to use it. Might as well save yourself some time. And then add 3. Y'all know how to copy and paste. Let me know if you don't. Okay, add 3. And then we're going to get, did y'all get a fraction?
Yeah.
So step 2, isolate y. Here's our slope-intercept form. You know what I'm going to have you do. Tell me your m, tell me your b. Okay, this would not be super fun to graph, but that's okay. Not making you graph today. What's your m? Which way is this line going to go, up or down? Down. It's going to decrease. And what's your b? -3/2. All right, try these other 2 problems, and then we got one more conversion to learn. So this second problem up here kind of looked around the second and third one you guys did. Again, I write a lot of work. You don't have to write all the steps to the side. I just like my notes to be thorough for anyone that's looking back at them. But again, ultimately the goal is to get to the slope-intercept form, what I circled. I'm having y'all practice write the M and the B. Technically, your answer is what is circled, just the y equals. That's what you're going to do today on your practice. You're going to convert, you're going to type in y equals your mx plus b, and then that's it. Okay, so I'm just kind of trying to keep spiraling in those big ideas. Things to be careful about. Y'all aren't scared of fractions. We're not scared of fractions. We know how to work those in our calculator. I would be careful on this one, the negative times the negative. That's something that sometimes trips people up with that as well. And then also, and I think this is good, and Delta Math will count it wrong if you don't do that, and I have corrected a couple people today as well as last class. You guys have to put an X. It has to be y equals a number, an X, and then a plus B, okay? And so it will mark it wrong on Delta Math, and it's frustrating. I will mark it wrong on your test. So you got to make sure you're keeping that X in there when you get your final answer there. Okay? Any questions on that type of conversion? How are we feeling? Good. Pretty good? Okay. All right, do we need to brain break it for a second? Like 2 minutes? Yes? No? All right, let's do a 2-minute brain break. May say this one does take a little bit longer. It's not necessarily harder. It's different operations, though. So again, we're going to let's talk about where we want to get to. We want to get to slope-intercept form so we can see our M, we can see our B. The giveaway is that we have y equals, same thing. It's where we're going. This time, though, on this page, we're starting in what's called standard form. Now, you actually have seen stuff in standard form before. You just probably didn't know that's what it's called. Okay, so just so you know, this is what it looks like. It's on the chart. It's on the chart right here, so you don't have to have it memorized. But what this looks like is your X and Y are on the same side, like they're both together. The A, the B, and the C, those will all be numbers. Number, number, number. We saw this a lot when we solved for intercepts. Y'all remember like plugging in a 0 for X, solve for Y, vice versa. So you've seen these before, but this is kind of what they'll look like. Something X, something Y equals a number. So still 2 steps to get Y by itself, but again, they're different steps. The first thing that you want to do, step 1, is to move the X term over. Okay, so this step is pretty quick. So you got to take whatever this guy is, and you've got to move it to the other side of the equation. And you're going to use your inverse operations, which will be adding or subtracting. If it's a positive 2x, you're going to subtract it on both sides. Vice versa, there. So that step is pretty quick. But then step 2 is technically the same as it is in the other one, solve for y, using inverse operations. But in this form, you have a number times y. So the inverse of multiplying is to do what? Divide. So this is where it might take a little more time. You're going to be putting some fractions in your calculator to reduce. But basically, you end up dividing by the coefficient of y. Remember, coefficient is the number in front. Okay, so it's still 2 steps. All right, let's do it. So I know this is in standard form y. Where are x and y? They're on the same side. That's how I can tell. X and y, same side. So this is my standard form. Okay? All right, so step number 1. Step number 1 is to move our x term. The whole thing. So I'm going to draw a line here because I'm going to be moving, and I want to make sure I know when I'm changing sides how I got it, what order I got to do it. What kind of x term do I have?
2.
Positive 2x. How do I zero out a positive 2x? Minus 2x. And what I do to one side, I have to do to the other side. So do y'all see what I just did there? So this is going to take my x completely off the left-hand side. And what's going to be left on the left-hand side? What's going to come down?
3y.
What kind of 3y? Positive. Just watch that sign, because if that is negative, or if it's a minus sign, that's going to have to come down. So it's 3y, okay, equals. Now, here's where it gets a little bit different. Can you take away a 2x from a 6?
No.
Why not?
Because one is a variable, one doesn't.
One is a variable, one doesn't. They are not like terms. Okay, so I'm going to show you kind of two ways you can do this in two different problems. So I'm going to keep the x first. What is the coefficient on x? Negative 2x. What kind of 6 is this? Positive or negative? So I'm going to separate it with a plus sign. Okay, so I'm just writing them side by side. That's the only thing that's really going on, because I can't do anything with them. One has an x and one doesn't. Not like terms. I do have to make sure the signs stay. Okay, and they have to be separated like that. Are we okay with step 1? Just swinging that x to the other side. Okay, but it's got to be opposite because you moved across the line. So that's step number 1. Step number 2 is to get the coefficient of y. What's the coefficient of y? So we need to divide everything by the coefficient of y. So divide by 3, divide this by 3, and divide this by 3. You should be writing divide by 3 times. And we use our fraction bars like this here. This is where you're going to want to grab a calculator, because we're going to use alpha y equals to help us reduce our fractions nice and pretty. So when I divide both sides by, or divide 3y by 3, that is going to leave me with what? Y. It's basically a 1y, but I don't have to put the 1. That's what I want. I'm in slope-intercept form there. Now I need to simplify these other fractions. Am I going to type x in regular calculator screen? No. I am typing negative 2 over 3 and alpha y equals and pressing enter. Just to see if it reduces. Does it reduce at all? No. So I'm just going to write it down. Negative 2 over 3, but what do I have to put next to it? X. Very good. And I just kind of put it to the side. You could put it up with the 2, or you could just kind of put it to the side. And then I'm going to reduce 6 over 3. I know you guys can probably divide 6 by 3 in your head, but I think it's really good practice, again, if they don't divide evenly or just checking signs and stuff, to just throw it in alpha y equals. 6 divided by 3 is what kind of number? So I have to put a plus sign in 2. And now I am in what form? I'm in slope-intercept form. So what can I tell? What can you tell me about this problem? The m is?
Negative 2.
Negative 2 over 3, and the b is? 2. Okay? You cannot see the slope until you get it into slope-intercept form. So all of these problems, there is a number next to x in the standard form, but that is not the slope. You got to do all this and get it there. Okay? Let's try the one right below it. And then I'm going to let you guys do 2 on your own. And then we're going to delta math it. Okay? All right. Convert to slope-intercept form. How do I know this is in standard form? Other than the fact that this is what it is on the whole page.
Because there's a x and a y after each number.
On the same side. That's kind of the giveaway. X and y are on the same side. Okay? 2 steps. Step number 1, what are we going to do?
Move the x.
Move the x. Move the x. All right, I'm going to draw my line. Step number 1 is to move x. Again, you don't have to write these steps to the side. This is just me being thorough. All right, what is my x term? Negative 3x. How am I going to move that? Across the line.
Plus 3.
Plus. Opposite. Opposite. Okay, I want to show you a different way that you can write it. And sometimes people like this better. And I'm cool with either. Okay? All right, be careful right here. What is going to come down on the left-hand side? Do not lose that negative sign, you guys. If you have a minus sign in front of your y, you've got to know that that's making your coefficient negative and it has to drop with it. So that's warning number 1. I'm going to put a star by that because that's kind of tricky. Okay, here's another way you can write this. You could write this as 24 plus 3x. Is that still the same thing as 3x plus 24? Yeah. So is it okay if you put your x in the second spot and your b in the first spot? Absolutely. As long as you know which one is still your m and which one is still your b. Sometimes people, especially with this form, they would rather do that because it's just, I don't know, less thinking sometimes. And I'm fine with that. Multiple choice is always going to do the mx plus b. But if it's free response, you can do b plus mx and it's okay. All right, so are we okay with this? Y'all see what I'm saying? All right, so now what's step number 2? We've moved x. Step number 2 is to divide by, what kind of 4?
Negative.
Everything divides. So divide by negative 4. Divide by negative 4. Divide by negative 4. 3 times. And again, I can still keep it in that same order. Still alpha y equals it. 24 over negative 4 is,
Negative 6.
and then I want to do 3 over negative 4.
Stays the same.
Stays the same. And then what do I have to put next to that?
Next.
This is the one that people leave off the x's a lot. Okay? Is this an acceptable answer? Is this still in slope-intercept form? Yes. What is your m?
3, 4. Negative 3.
Negative 3 over 4. What is your b? Negative 6. Good. Okay, so y'all can read it either way. I'm totally fine if you keep it like that. Okay, try the other 2. Those other 2 here, but I want you to fill this in. What's the goal? We learned 2 different forms. If you start in this form, what are your steps? If you start in the other form, what are your steps? Okay, write it out. We're trying to summarize. We're trying to get this stuff to stick in our brain. If we write it in our own words, that will help. After that, you are going to do 4.3 in Delta Math. And I don't know how many questions it is, but we'll see here pretty quick.
What's the main goal of this lesson?
I don't know. Go look at your notes.
What did we do all day?
What have we been doing?
Standard form.
Well, that's where we started for some of them. You're doing 4.3. There are 3, 4, 5, 6 problems.
Converting news.
That's what you're working on there.